I've got this beautiful man here, Mark Pheely. And just to introduce him, Mark was, he runs, he's run a few studios in Melbourne, Australia. And he is, I remember I went to one of his classes early on in my yoga teaching career, and I was just blown away. And one of the reasons I was blown away with Mark was he really mirrored that authenticity that I sort of want to bring up in my life. And, you know, so I want to chat to Mark because he's definitely a dude that I respect very highly. And I've got a feeling that he comes from not a yogic background. So yeah, Mark, how you going, man?
Yeah, Tommy, good man. Really well, thank you, mate. Awesome to see you, and thanks for the invitation to have a chat. You know, I remember the first class I came to of yours, mate, at Yoga Tree there at Elstonwick, and I loved it. And there was a beautiful, strong connection, you know, in not just what you taught. The flow was awesome, and the you know, the sequencing, etc., was amazing. But there was a beautiful strength about you, brother, that I felt right from that point. I went, this guy's on it. He's on the journey. You know, he's new, but you stood up and you held your ground and you did a freaking awesome job. And from there, mate, you've just blossomed and grown. So
Yeah,
it's been tremendous to watch. Congratulations.
no, I remember that class you came to at Yoga Tree. I think I was only teaching for maybe 2 months.
Yeah.
And someone said to me before the class, they're like, Mark Pheely's here. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, surely he's not coming to my class. And I saw you walk up. I'm like, oh, fuck. He's coming to my class. I was shitting bricks. And it was just, it was actually, to be honest, one of the, just having you in the room, it just made me, it made me appreciate, one, you and your journey, but also made me appreciate that, you know, I can stand there and still hold power at the same point as shitting bricks. You know, so dude, so what's like, how did you get into this whole, I mean, tell us your backstory. I mean, how did it all start before even yoga? What were you doing?
Yeah, man, like it's been a journey of a lifetime for most of us. Yeah. And I even remember from a little boy, like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years of age, there was always this sense of a calling to something else. I had no idea what that something else was, but that it was almost like an energetic magnet that just kept pulling me into a space that felt, best way I can describe it, felt warm and safe, right? It felt like a second mother almost, yeah. And, you know, then I lost that, like most of us do. You go to school and you get imprinted by the education system, and then society tells you this is what success looks like. So I got on that train, you know, and did the school and did the uni, and ended up in property. My background is I'm an exercise physiologist. That was my sort of training. I did a Bachelor of Human Movement Studies at Queensland Uni. And there was a 4-year degree in understanding how the body works, etc. And I went out then and taught in some gyms and became a phys ed teacher and loved it. But society had imprinted, and I'd got on the train, right? Imprinted that success, I was never going to be financially successful being a school teacher. And whilst I loved it, I loved the interaction with the kids and seeing them blossom and grow, I went, no, I've got to have more money in my bank account. Yeah. So I went off, did the corporate thing, ended up in 20 years in property and construction, ultimately as what they call a development manager for a company called GPT, General Property Trust, previously Lendlease.
And were you actually getting your hands dirty, or what were you doing?
Yeah, so in the initial days, mate, yes, but I ended up a senior development manager and running large scale commercial jobs for the company. To give you an idea, the last job I did before I left, I was the head of the development for High Point Shopping Centre when we installed David Jones. So
wow,
a $300 million job. At one stage, mate, we had 2,500 guys on site and we're spending $2 million a day.
Crazy.
And somehow or other, I got myself in charge of that. You know, I'm
wow.
not quite sure how.
And at this point, did you have any form of mindfulness practice or any sort of, you know, I mean, were you out in the booze? Were you partying? I mean, what were you doing, you know?
I was destroying myself. I was destroying my marriage, but I was getting a very big, juicy bank account, right? And lots of accolades of good job, mate. You know, you're on this, you're successful. You got the big corner office, you've got the bank account, you've got the houses, blah, blah, blah. But my marriage was falling apart. I was using my body like I was no nothing for me to come home and drink, a bottle and a half of wine. I'd walk in the door and my wife would say, "How was your job?" And "How was your day?" And I go, "Babe, I got no more words left." I'd grab a bottle of wine, I'd go and sit in the back deck by myself and drink it, have a shower, eat whatever she had prepared, God bless her, and went to bed and repeat, and that was what I deemed a success, and it was destroying me. Ultimately, my marriage failed as a result of that. But in the background, in the last couple of years, something started to talk to me quite loudly to go, "This is, you're going to kill yourself, and you're not really creating any sense of joy. You're ticking a lot of boxes, and by society standards, you might say you're moderately successful. But mate, I was not happy. There was no sense of joy. I loved the people I worked with, and they were amazing people. And that's really the thing that held it in place, was the people I worked with. But so I went back searching for that journey, and I stumbled on yoga, and I stumbled on the Australian Yoga Academy. Anthony and Dominique, and they were my mentors, my teachers, my friends for a number of years. I was a student with them, trained with them. In the interim, I went to India, spent some time over there to kind of find myself.
Yeah.
And,
but wait, just on that, like when you say stumbled across, yoga and I guess the philosophies and the practice, what do you mean by stumbled across? Because I think a lot of people are in that stage where they're like, "Oh, what's this?" But they haven't, they're not really listening to the calling yet. So what do you mean by stumbled?
Yeah, look, I was studying Buddhism, so I was searching. There was something inside of me that was alive, was rich, was calling me, but I didn't know what it was. I couldn't give it a name. I didn't know where to find it. I didn't know even if it even existed. I felt it was somewhere in that world of philosophy and spirituality. So I went down the Buddhist path for quite a while, and read and studied and went to monasteries and learnt a lot of Buddhist techniques, which I absolutely love and still love to this day. But for me, it was missing the physical dynamic practice. Yeah. So I tried a bit of Bikram, and that was that was my first kind of foray into physical yoga.
Yeah.
As you all know, Bikram's pretty hardcore. I stayed with it only because I fell in love with the yoga instructor.
Yeah.
She never knew that. I was never brave enough to tell her, but that's the only reason I kept going back.
Yeah. And so wait, so in this point, I don't want to cut you off, but I just pick up on certain things. At this point, you weren't working, correct?
So I'd taken 6 months off my job to go to India. I had 4 months in India, traveling, exploring ashrams, etc. I came back. I took another month or so to kind of find my feet here. And then I went back. I went back into the corporate job, but I went back from 5 days a week to 4 days a week. And the company were really supportive of that.
Yeah.
Whilst I searched for what this thing was.
And at this point, how much attachment or how did you identify with the money in your bank account?
I saw it as a barrier.
Yeah.
I saw it as a barrier. The income was ridiculously good. I could buy anything I wanted, go wherever I wanted. So I had a lot of financial freedom, but my heart was empty. My heart was empty, and I felt there had to be something else. That flag on the hill, that moment where you go, if my salary reaches that amount, that's success. Well, I got to that amount and then some, and it was empty.
Yeah.
Empty. Yeah.
As I reckon, that there's a huge chunk of the population in that space right now where they identify with the monetary or whatever value, the houses, the family, all this type of stuff. But there's this like dirty emptiness in them, and they just don't know, where that's going to actually, why that's sort of happening, that emptiness. So yeah, go on. But from there, what happened?
Yeah. And it's such a powerful thing, mate. Like I'd spent, almost 20 years in this job, building my way up, working ridiculous, like lots of us do. My story is not unique, right? Lots of us do this, and got to a point where I went, there's the flag on the hill. It took me almost 2 decades of my life and a marriage and almost my health to get to that flag on the hill. And when I got there, I went, is that it? Is that all there is? You know? And yet there was another flag. I could have gone higher. I went, geez, if this flag's not it after 20 years, is that flag going to be any better? So I kind of held on. I went back to 4 days a week and held on to that just in case, you know, and then started deeply searching. And I went to like a yoga expo, right, where there was people had all their various stalls out, just searching, going, I don't know what I'm doing, you know. I am wandering around. And then I met Anthony, you know, and he said, mate, come to Australian Yoga Academy. So I did, and fell in love with them and with the journey, and went, here we are. This is home. Yeah. So over the next couple of years, I spent time with them and studied with them and practiced with them and deepened my own practice to a point I went, mate, I wonder whether I can actually make a living out of this. Can I pay the bills and have a life, you know, by Western standards, but not be tied to a corporate structure? So I resigned, sold everything, my houses, paid all my debt off, sold everything, went and got a little place in Williamstown, and it was very humble compared to, you know, where I was, but beautiful, you know, little garden and this lovely place by the water, and end up opening up what was then Australian Yoga Academy Seddon, subsequently become Westside Yoga. And I remember, mate, on my very first day, we put all this, my last little bit of savings into it, you know, my bank account's gone to zero. And we were being in the studio on the first Saturday morning, 8 o'clock class, and going, we've done all this, we've built it, we marketed it. Is anyone going to come? You know, and I remember sitting in that empty studio 15 minutes before the class, and there was no one. And then within the next 10 minutes, we had 10 people, ultimately 12 people.
Yeah.
And from day one, bang, it just went. And it's been a successful, small, you know, suburban studio since then, mate, but an extraordinary community, deeply connected, you know, the most gifted and committed teaching group that some people have been with it since we opened, which is, you know, 5.5, almost 6 years ago now. And from there, mate, it just went kaboom, and that went, okay, here's my life. And so from that point forward, I've been full-time yoga.
Yeah. And so if you look back over your journey from where you are now, and obviously, you know, people might have the perception that once you start yoga, you suddenly become this holy man and everything makes sense. And there's like, every day you're just like, oh, that's where life is. Let's just go over there. So it's like because I remember, I guess when I got into the whole teaching and the yogi community and all that type of stuff, to be honest, I was actually a little bit shocked about the amount of, the amount of toxicity that I sort of found within the yoga space. But I guess that was also a mirror of what I was projecting out, because I had all these expectations around it. And it was, and really like what I guess one of the biggest lessons for me through mindfulness and yoga and the whole, I don't know, the whole journey of it, is that ultimately all these practices are fucking amazing and they really do help you come back home, but it's always going to come back to you. You have to make your own choices on what really serves you and how you can serve the world, you know? And so it'd be cool to know from your end in terms of what have you found in terms of similarities of when you were working and attached to your bank account compared to now you're in the yoga space, and what you've sort of found in there that might be similar, and how you've come out of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Look, you know, I would start by saying that everybody does the best they can do with what they know at the time. Yeah. With what level of consciousness that they're connected to or not connected to, as the case may be. And we all operate from that basis. So the yoga industry in its broad sense, if you look at it at a macro perspective, is in many ways, mate, no different to any other industry. Yeah. The great majority of people come with extraordinarily good intentions, However, they see yoga as a magic elixir. Yeah, if I take this yoga pill and do, enough down-faced dogs and warrior twos, then I'll become enlightened and my life will be aha, and the world is forever good. And for some that might be true, but I reckon it's a minority, mate. It's like it's the same as everything else. It's a very healthy, very rich exploration. But ultimately, and you hit on it when you asked the question, mate, ultimately it comes down to the self. It's like anything. You want to play the piano, you got to put the work in. You want to learn how to be a master chef, you got to put the work in. You want to run a marathon, you got to put the work in, It's no different to yoga. It's not like you turn up and go, okay, yeah, now I can twist myself into this beautiful shape. Suddenly my world is good. It doesn't work that way. I don't know anything that works that way. The bottom line to it is, however, that it is an extraordinarily well-documented, rich and diverse and proven, not only through yogic traditions, but now through science, a pathway to the end of human suffering. Now that might be a pretty big and bold statement to make, but at its heart, yoga is a pathway to samadhi. Yeah, samadhi being contentment. It's called many names. Bliss, I think bliss is probably an incorrect interpretation, but contentment with the way life is, contentment with yourself, contentment with the world, and seeing the world in reality rather than the way you think it should be. Yeah, it's a proven, documented, rich pathway to that, but it's a pathway. There are pointers. It's not a pill. And for the great majority of people, to reach samadhi, you have to do the work. Yeah, to reach the end of the marathon course, you have to do the work. To play the piano concerto, you have to do the work. But the work, man, is so freaking awesome that the word work just seems so, incorrect.
Yeah,
it is
agreed.
A joy. It is a bliss. Yes, it's a discipline. Tapas. You need that fire. You need to go, you know what? I'm on this and I'm committed to it. But ultimately, the path to it is know thyself. Know thyself.
Yeah.
And know what you are not and know what you are. And once that level of consciousness begins to become reconnected, it's present in all of us always. But once that becomes reconnected, once you're able to separate the ego and the idea of self and the way you think life should be, and come back into the acceptance of what is, this ability to love yourself wholeheartedly, without exception, in your shadow and in your light, in the stuff that you think is absolute rubbish and the things you think are great about yourself, they are all part of you. And the pathway to samadhi gives you the tools to be able to see clearly that you are whole and complete exactly as you are. Nothing is missing. And this is it. And at that point, and there is still exploration and work to be done there. Yeah, of course. But man, that shift that occurs, all I can say to you is, if you're thinking about yoga, give it a crack. Seriously, give it a crack. Without hesitation, man, it saved my life. It didn't save my marriage, but it literally saved my life. I reckon I would have been in a very early grave with a whole lot of alcohol poisoning.
Yeah.
But man, I love it. I love it, but it's a discipline. You've got to be prepared to go, you know what, roll your sleeves up, give it a real shot, find yourself a good teacher like you, find someone that you align with. You go, yep, I trust that guy or that woman or that person. I trust them, and I'm going to give it a red hot crack. And if you do that, I guarantee you it will offer you abundance like you've never could even imagine even existed.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's funny, man, because as you're talking, I remembered because everyone gets their like first little aha moment when they start yoga. And I remember mine was that I was in like a forward fold, and I'm not going to use any of the yogic names because, most people listening are just not going to know, but I was in simply a forward fold, and I saw my right shin, and I was looking at the hairs on my right shin. I'm just going, fucking hell, that's what my shin looks like. And I saw the little hairs and I'm like, wow. And I had this surge of energy moved through me. Like even now talking about it. Yeah. And I don't even know why I'm crying, but it was such a, fuck, sorry. Sorry, man.
Yeah.
But that was, for me, that was the moment where I was like, wow, holy shit. You know, like it really just seeing my shin. And it was that for me, that moment, it was so simple, but it changed my life. That one little moment, you know. And I guess for you, what was your first aha moment? Did you have one? Was it like that? Was it so, I mean, did you? Yeah.
Yeah, man. So somewhat similar, you know, somewhat
Yeah.
similar. Mine was, you know, in what's called pigeon pose. It's just a yoga shape, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a forward fold-ish, you know, but it opens up in through the hips.
Mm.
And I don't know what that was all about, but for the first 6 months that I did that particular shape, tears came up, welled up spontaneously. I wasn't sad, but it was like some form of emotion that I'd shoved down with alcohol or work or sex or some other, you know, some other addiction was suddenly being released out of me, and things were becoming clear and more gentle. Yeah.
Mm.
More gentle doesn't mean becoming more of, you know, a wussy, but more gentle, more grounded, more confident, yeah, in my own being of who, just that simple form of release. And, you know, with study later on, I started to understand what that was, and why the body releases itself in that way. But man, it's, you know, this is the thing about yoga, yeah, is certainly my journey was, I thought I needed to understand everything about it before I could truly get to the essence of it. To read the Bhagavad Gita and all the scriptures and all the, be able to quote, look, rubbish. They're valuable forms of study. Absolutely, I take nothing away from them. You can scholars spend their life studying. These are valuable and ancient and highly respected texts. But the essence of yoga is so simple. Sit, be still, breathe. And at that point, you don't need to understand what a chakra is or how to do a headstand or how to meditate deeply. And yeah, you can go and explore those, and they're highly valuable. But behind all of that is an essence of simplicity, of being still and sitting with whatever arises. Right? Yeah. And that for me was such a shift in my whole way of approaching this beautiful practice and the life.
Okay, so one last question, Mark. With if you think back to who you were back before you started these practices, if there's a guy listening right now, because I'm really going to direct this at men, because I think it's just I just think so many men just need to explore these type of practices, because it's just needed. If you're a dude that's watching this right now who is in a similar situation, you know, they identify with their bank account, their houses, their family, whatever else, regardless of how much it is, and they have this thing inside them where they're being called to like a mindfulness practice, or to, you know, they're just looking around to see what's going on, you know, and you know, what advice, what not even advice, but what guidance would you have for these dudes out there? Because there's many of them.
Yeah. I can tell you, mate, from my own personal experience and talking with people before I left the corporate world, the biggest fear that I had is if I went down this path, that I would lose everything, that I'd become this meditating guru sitting in a cave, and I'd have to give up everything else, right? I can say to you, that's a path if you choose to explore it, and a really valuable path, but you actually have to give up nothing. This is a mindset and a way of living. You can still keep your job. You can still keep your family. You can still play your footy. You can still go to the gym. You can still have a beer, right? You can go for a surf. You can do all the things that you currently do. But adding the practice of yoga and mindfulness into that creates a different dimension and texture to the whole experience. The way you drink that beer, the way that you talk to your kids, the way that you make love to your wife, you know, whatever that might be, will fundamentally change because you have a different view of who you are. And when that shifts, when that simple shift that happens through the process of yoga and other traditions, but through yoga, yeah, when that shifts, boom, mate, there is a sense of joy and space and contentment that I've not found anywhere else, you know, in life so far. And maybe it exists, I don't know, but I haven't found it. I haven't found it in drugs, I haven't found it in sex, I haven't found it in alcohol, but I found it in mindfulness and understanding self. So you don't have to put on an orange robe and go wandering through the forest. If you do, awesome, let me know how that is. That's a heck of a way of life, right? But you can still do all the things you're doing now, but all of a sudden you've got more presence, more confidence, more strength in yourself than you've ever had. And you know what? If you're thinking about it, all I can say is, man, like, give it a crack. Just give it a crack and see how it goes. If it's not for you, you lost nothing. But I can tell you from one guy to another, it can change your entire life.
That's awesome. Mark, mate, thank you so much for even just chatting to me. I feel honored to have you on and even just pick your brain on this stuff, because I know that, you know, you weren't born into these practices, and you've definitely been through the journey. And it's always, you know, and I'm sure a lot of men are the same. When you see pain and trauma in someone's eyes, you straight away the trust is just, it's just there and it's evident. So thank you for sharing, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, look, I thank you, mate. I've always had the greatest respect for you, and I really appreciate what you're doing in terms of getting this out to the community in the way that you choose to do it. Yeah. And it'll connect with a whole group of people that might not otherwise have the opportunity to contemplate whether it's for them or not, mate. But, you know, thank you for the work you're doing. It's very powerful and very needed. So much,
thanks, brother.
Much gratitude to you.
And yeah, if you're, so your West Side Yoga is like kicking ass, isn't it? So if you're in
Melbourne, mate, yeah. Yeah, so we're like everyone else. We're closed at the moment. We've got a little online presence, which is ticking along nicely. But we're about to hopefully go back like the rest of us in the next sort of month or so. But mate, we're kicking it another level. We're going 300-hour teacher training program. And yes, it's got all the elements of yoga in there, you know, that you'll need for Yoga Alliance and the stamp. But the core essence of this 300-hour course is know thyself, consciousness, and understanding the self, the nature of mind, and who are you. Yeah. And there's the shift. If you understand who you are from a yoga teacher perspective, there's a shift from a yoga instructor, from repeating what someone else has told you, valuable, worthwhile, and amazing. But when you shift from an instructor to teacher, where you can embody those practices, when you have knowledge and experience, you put them together, then comes wisdom, boom, that's a whole new ballgame, mate. So we're taking 12 people on a journey of 300 plus hours through this whole maze of what is yoga, but underpinning every lesson, every conversation, every interaction, every posture, know thyself. Who are you? Who are you? Yeah. And if we can crack that or get at least a line of inquiry into that, I feel like we are honoring the tradition of what it was originally intended. That is to find a connection to your own source of what you call God. Yeah. Find it that you and God are the same, and all of you is perfect. So this is the essence, mate. And this year that I took off, you know, just recently, mate, was the best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
It completely and fundamentally shifted something in me. So all the teachings, all the learnings, all the beautiful experiences that I'd had through so many great people, I stopped studying, I stopped reading, and I sat, literally, mate, I sat for a year. I sat and meditated. Not all day, every day, but that's all I did. No television, no books, no interactions nothing. Just sat in the silence. This is what some of the wiser teachers were saying to me. And I felt if I wanted to be authentic, if I really wanted to be a teacher in this world, then I need to go and experience that and see what it was like. Yeah. And it was a bit of a social experiment for me too, to take, don't just do it for an hour or 20 minutes, do it for a year, every day, all day. And mate, some of the most profound experiences came by just simply sitting detaching from self, detaching from thought, form, clarity, and connection to samadhi, to bliss. And it's completely changed my life, completely changed the way that I teach, completely changed this teaching course that I was, that's what I said I would never run a teacher training course. I had no interest. But out of the wisdom that came through me, not from me, but through me, this course has blossomed, mate. And you should see this manual. Freaking hell, man. I'm so excited by it. We're printing it on Friday, right? I'm freaking beside myself. It's such a rich document, and I'm sure there are many, teaching training programs around that have got this incorporated in it. But its richness and its authenticity, mate, just blows my little brain out.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Oh, so excited. Where'd you do it? Were you in Melbourne or did you go somewhere to?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of my time, the great majority of my time, I went up to, you ever heard of a place called Amarant Retreat? So it's
I have, but yeah, no, I don't know where it is. Yeah.
It's not well known. I don't know why, but it's in the Dandenong Ranges. It's on 42 acres, and it's a 14 bedroom, 8 bathroom house built for teaching yoga, right? And I got to know the people. I run a few retreats there, and I knew that they'd stopped running retreats there for a whole raft of reasons. The property was for sale, so I knew the lady who ran it, and I said, "Hey, look, got a funny idea. How about I come and live there, right? And I'll do all the gardening and caretaking and cleaning for you. Just keep an eye, turn the lights on, keep the rodents out." And so I did, mate. For 6 months, I went and lived there. And I was living in complete silence, completely by myself up in the mountains in this beautiful, beautiful home. So that was one experience. And then the other one, I went to Bali for my own personal silent retreat. And but the rest of the time, mate, I just sat at home. We live now, we're lucky to live in a place called Murchison, which is North Victoria. 2 hours drive, hour and a half, 2 hours drive from Melbourne. We live on Lyndall's grandmother's property. So we're surrounded by, I look out my front door, mate, we've got kangaroos and farmland and blah, blah.
Crazy.
And out my back is all of our veggies. And, so we're living a really simple life. It's a humble little home, but it's so richly connected to nature. So my day was get up at whenever I wake up, 4:35, do my practice for a couple of hours, have breakfast, and then spend the rest of the day, mate, in mindfulness in the garden and repeat. That was it for a year. So, but mate, seriously, it was the best thing I've ever done for myself, mate.
I bet. This
sense of understanding this and experiencing. So understanding the information. So what the wisdom holders say, then experience that, actually go and experience that for yourself. What does that look like and feel like? And then that creates a whole level of wisdom's got wrong connotations, but it feels like wisdom. It feels like, no more searching. I feel there'll be more to do in this space, but I feel like that's it, mate. I've come as far as I need to come for the moment, at least.
Well, you can definitely feel it, even though we're not in the same room. As soon as you popped up on that screen, I felt it straight away. So
thanks, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks, Marky.